made me feel like family whenever I was here. Melissa's my best friend. And, she told me a lot about her daddy before I met him, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet this man. I'm so excited, because of all the stories she told me, and I feel privileged to have known him. I feel privileged to have been invited to this place many times. I feel privileged to have, he made me feel like I was a part of this family. He loved my son, and he called him that little blonde-headed boy. He never said Peyton. He always said, where's that little blonde-headed boy? What's that little blonde-headed boy doing? He loved Peyton. And my husband, and we just feel privileged to have known him. We're grateful. Very grateful.
I feel the same way. I know this isn't my home, but for 25 years, this has been my home. Anytime I've lost my way, I've known where to find it, and it's been right here. And I hope I never lose that.
I got a story about Cyrus and I were on the fire department here. He wanted the fire department to transport people when they were hurt, and they were all against it. And, he actually went to jail over that one time. And about, I guess, 15 years ago, Justin and I were in the truck, and he had a seizure. And a volunteer fire department met us and took him to the hospital. I just thought that was kind of interesting that his grandfather had gone to jail to try to get them to do that. And those guys in that fire department had no idea that they just considered it routine now. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting connection.
Said everything we want to say. I want to thank everyone for coming. This was Dad's. This was Dad's idea. This is why we're here today. And, he wouldn't have had it any other way. He loved his family. He loved his land. And this is what he wanted. So I'm glad, and we really appreciate everyone speaking and everyone coming to celebrate his life. Dad was a great father. Great family man, and we're going to miss him. But what I learned from Dad was empathy. He had the most empathy of any person I ever met in my life. He didn't meet a stranger, and if he thought had an inkling that he needed some help, he was going to give you some help one way or another. When we lived in Virginia, in our wagon train up there, we took a camper trailer. And it was parked in the backyard. I came home from high school one day, and there was a homeless lady living in that trailer. And I didn't know if she broke into it or stealing stuff out of it. So I go in the house, I said, Dad, there's some homeless looking lady out there in our travel trailer. He said, yeah, I know, son. I saw her walking down the road and asked if she needed help. She said, I need a place to live. I need a place to live. She lived there, 6 months, and came home one day and she wasn't there. We figured she found a better place to live. But, he, in my opinion, he's the greatest man I ever knew. Like I said, he would be very happy today if he was here with us. Morrisons like to get together and share stories, and we like to eat. So we're doing that today. I'm not going to talk any longer. The food's ready. I know we're all hungry, and let's eat and share stories. And thank y'all again for coming. Again, if you guys haven't signed the guest book, please do so.
And when the work is over, they stay.
Yes.
I know it. I don't recognize it.
That's too late.
Go back some.
Hey, no, Dad, it's the flying dog. Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to go everywhere with her mama. That was her in there barking the whole time. She wanted to be outside. And normally she don't want to be outside. She wants to hide.
Yeah, but everybody's out here.
Everybody was out here.
Yeah.
Spoiled. Your nails look good. Gianna said it was something that her nails, my nails look good. You buy them for?
It's like a issue.
How are you?
All right. How is she? Trying to be undercover. Keep the police at bay.
Right. That's right. I only saw him in a wedding, but I took the baby from
You didn't speak to
Anna.
No, what am I gonna say to her? I don't speak to the devil.
You don't like her.
Cruella, Morticia, she'll.
Hi, Grandpa. Thank you for catching, but I'm
No, Daddy. This is Noah.
I've met Noah before. Who is he?
You're okay. You're fine.
Mr. Tommy. I'm Deanna. You go back to Lisa's. Let's go.
I'd talk to him over and over. Sound he said it was doing something. I just feel
Hey, boy. Where you going? Huh? Where you going?
They're fun, but they're a lot of work.
Standing under the streets waving at us.
Yeah, Young said anywhere you want. Feel free. Yeah.
Terry, where Terry?
Everybody's gonna be talking on that end.
On that end?
Yes, ma'am. So if y'all want to sit that way.
This is green already, so I'm sure that's just going to add to it.
I'm standing between us and eating.
You guys want to go to
Y'all, how you been?
Good.
You, it is Cyrus out.
for being here. To memorialize and share stories of Dad. These were his favorite type of gatherings. With family. He those made his day, his week, his year with being around family. So thank you for being a part of all this. It means a lot. what we're going to do today is we've asked some cousins and Tommy, a good family friend, to say some words and share some stories. And after that, we'd love to open the floor up if you guys want to say any, share any stories or share some thoughts. You're more than welcome. Once that's wrapped up, Tubby's going to give some final words, and we're going to have some great food, so I hope you guys all stay. And enjoy the day with your family. Tim? Is Tim close? Sorry.
He was trying to hide back here, but you got him.
If you can follow the programs, who's going down the list, and I'll set you up pretty, not a great opening.
Right.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, before we get started, we have programs, and if you would please sign our guest book up front. We'd certainly appreciate it. Programs are up front. Actually, I'll grab a handful of more.
Well, I am Tim Arrington. I am Uncle Si's nephew. My mother, Eva Carolyn, is his sister, for anybody who wouldn't know the connection. And when Si asked me to speak, I didn't know, every story I think of, I didn't know if it was appropriate to tell in mixed company. And so I weeded out a couple of those. And what I most remember about Uncle Si, for me, is that the word that keeps coming to me is family. And he treated me like a son. I never really felt like a nephew. We were, all of us, Charlotte, son Mark, and my siblings, and Melissa and son Toby, were all just like brothers and sisters. And we grew up together, and we would spend our summers down here, and we'd stay up here with our grandmother Eva, but mostly I spent most of my time down there because Melissa and I were so close, and just kind of lived down there. And they fed us, and Uncle Si would take us on jobs to work, and that was always some kind of adventure. We never knew if we were going to get paid or get shot at, and then here you never knew whether you were going to get shot at. It's like if you got a new car, you had to call ahead and say, "I've got a new car," because you would be met with a rifle or shotgun before you could get through the driveway. But it's some people, we tell these stories and they don't believe them, and it was just Aunt Billy used to always say it was just our life. People thought we made these things up, and it wasn't. It was just kind of our real life that didn't seem to us like it was anything different until you went to somebody else's house that had, I don't know, a normal family that didn't involve firearms and somebody in their underwear all the time. One time we went to Dallas to Six Flags, and I don't know if Uncle Si forgot his swimming suit or if he just really never had one, and we were all going to go out to the pool, and he was already out there in his underwear, just swimming, and Aunt Pat would get so mad, and she would, Cyrus, get back in. And he just didn't think anything. He just kind of did whatever he wanted to do, and people just kind of melded around whatever was going on, and he was the most generous person I have ever met in my life. He would give you anything you needed. He did things when he couldn't afford to do it. He would do without so somebody else could have. And he and my daddy were best friends, and I always noticed that throughout my childhood, their relationship, their friendship, and how no matter how old they were, every time they got together, it was like they had never been apart, and it was almost like they were still kids. They would fish together. And when Daddy was really sick and he was home from the hospital, and we were just trying to pretend like everything was okay. We didn't want him to know anything was the matter because we just wanted him to be happy for his last days. And he had wanted to go out so bad, and he couldn't walk, and we couldn't figure out a way to get him outside of our house. And Uncle Si took the Greyhound all the way from Shreveport to Columbus, Ohio, and it was a long, long trip. And he came and stayed, and he built a ramp so Daddy could go outside. And it just meant, it was just that sacrifice. He came by himself, and he just, probably at a time when he couldn't afford to even take a bus up there. But it didn't matter because he knew that Daddy needed something. And anytime any of us needed something, he was there. And that's what I most remember about him, I guess, is his generosity. And I never felt anything but love and acceptance and from him. And even when we came to visit last month, and we came and stayed for a week, and we just came here every day and sat with him. And he said a lot of other things. He wasn't always someone who would express his feelings or anything like that, but you knew through his actions that he loved you and how important you were. But this last visit was so important to me because he said a lot of things that I never heard him say before, and he talked about things that we had never talked about in our life, and I think it brought a lot of peace for him and a lot for Aunt Pat. I mean, that was especially hard for her, I think, to accept what was happening and what was going on, and I think he wanted, even into that part, he didn't even want to say how he was really feeling physically, because he wanted her to think that he could get better or that he would get better, and that was, to me, that was again sacrifice. He was going beyond himself for somebody else, and so that's the things that have come to me over the last weeks when Si asked me to speak, and I got kind of nervous because we tell all these stories to each other, but to have to get up and say something in front of people maybe you don't know, or and even people you do know, and then I have to contend with Laird, who always is the best speaker, and then I saw him on the bill, and I just thought I just introduced myself from the list, and then he showed up with a notebook, and I'm like, well, hell. He's prepared. But I never, it's hard, I couldn't put on paper, I guess, or even in the note and I don't even know if today I fully expressed how I feel and how much I loved him. But he was he and my daddy were the two greatest men I've ever known. And they were best friends from childhood, and always were there for each other's children. I think my daddy was always there for my cousins, his children, and we always just kind of felt like one unit. We all moved as one unit, and I think that's important. I don't know. I have friends in Columbus, and then we talk about our families, and nobody has any stories to compare to the experiences that we've had and the love that we've shared and still share today. I mean, we don't see each other all the time, but it's just every time we're together, it's as if we were never apart. And I think he would be happy today to see everybody here having a good time. I know it's a little emotional, but I mean, mostly I have happy memories. I mean, they're all happy, but it's hard to talk about the serious stuff. But all that really ever races through my mind are all the funny stories. And one of my favorites, and I'll be my last one, is when they lived in Virginia, and Willis and I were going up to visit, and I had just bought a brand new car, and we drove up in the driveway, and apparently there had been some skirmish with Si and Toby and some boys from school, and so we were all on alert that there was going to maybe be something happening, and we had just gotten out of the car and were walking up to the door, and Uncle Si comes running out with, of course, the shotgun in his underwear, the usual, and the boys had come down the street screaming and yelling, acting stupid and didn't realize that it was a cul-de-sac and they were going to have to circle around and come back. And when they came back, he just started shooting, and Willis jumped in a bush somewhere because he never aimed. You never knew where it was going. And I was just screaming, "Don't hit my car, don't hit my car." And I ran inside for cover, and they just, I mean, I think it just shocked them. I don't know if they ever heard from them again. They probably just drove off somewhere and never came back. And anybody else would just think that was horrible, and I mean, we just laugh, and we still laugh. That was the funniest thing that almost ever happened. I mean, I just loved all these things that were kind of, a lot of them were kind of serious, big serious things, and when it's all said and done, that's just who he was. He was going to do whatever he had to do to protect his family in any way that he had to, and you couldn't say anything about anybody. And our family or our friends with him, and he would just rise. We knew that he was there. Anytime I was in trouble, the first thing I didn't think about calling Mother or Daddy, I thought, I got to call Uncle Si, because he can fix it. He always, so there was somebody he knew that knew somebody that could fix whatever it is, that whatever trouble you had, and that is, it was comforting. It was always a comfort to know that that somebody had your back, and he had it in the best way possible. And I think that's what today is all about, is just remembering what an incredible man he was, and how much we loved him, and how much he loved all of us. And that's what I think that is important to remember, is how generous and kind he was. And he didn't always say it, but he said it in his actions. He didn't have the words, but he proved it hundreds and hundreds of times over in what he did for us. And so that's today what I remember when I look at him. So that's it.
Mark Anderson, I think. That you know?
That's me. No, that's all right. Hello, everyone. I know. My name is Mark Anderson. I'm part of the Morrison family. My mother is Charlotte. She's Cyrus's sister, so I'm first cousins to a lot of you guys here, and some of you I've seen recently and some I haven't. So good to see you again, although it's a different occasion than we would normally be together. So again, I don't know how I'm going to follow Tim. He did a pretty good job, and again, I'm intimidated by Laird as well with his build-up, because he's always the speaker at events. But so like Tim, when I was asked to come out and share some memories and speak about my uncle and their father, I was in reflection and trying to think, well, what can I say? And it's very hard to summarize in a speech, or even write down, like Tim mentioned, how to best describe, a person when you have a whole lifetime of memories about them. And I'm sure you all, just by being here, you knew Cyrus and what kind of person he was. He had a very funny side to him. He had a very serious side to him. And if you ever got his temper up, you saw that side of him too. So, and that's mostly where the guns come into play. I think we've all had one pointed at us one time or another. Which is all fun, right? I mean, just like Timothy said, we look back on that kind of stuff, and it's funny to us, and not many people would believe it, but when I think about Uncle Si, I think about here, and I think about this place where we are standing today, and the home place, as a lot of people call it. And I know a lot of you have memories here as children. A lot of us grew up here, generations before me and generations now that have come after me, including mine, and we're just all connected to this place. And he's the one that stayed here throughout the years. He was born here, grew up here, lived here his whole life. He never left. A lot of us left and went to other places, but we always knew, because he always told us, that if anything ever happens to you, come home, and you always have a place to come. So, and he even said that to me as recently as a couple of weeks ago when we last visited with him. So, and that's always very comforting to know that you always have a backup. You have a safety net. You always have somebody that loves you, no matter what happens to you in life, no matter where you go and do and try to do with your own life. But as a child growing up here, I spent a lot of time here like everybody else did. My mother would drop me off here and go off and do things, and I would stay here with Eva or play with Si and Toby and go back to their house and stay with them and Melissa. And always fun memories. I have a lot of first memories, first things in my life that I experienced with him. One of them was learning how to cuss. Being outside, you know, instead of going to the house, things like that. How to saddle a horse, horseback ride, driving a tractor, riding in the back of a pickup truck, getting pulled over by a state trooper on Highway 1 while riding in the back of a pickup truck. Taking me to and from Agnew School. Just fun things that you remember. But I think one time only ever in my life did I make him mad, and it took a lot to make him mad. And it was we were re-shingling this house, or he had taken it upon himself as a project to, this is in the probably late 70s, early 80s. And he had hired some people or got up there himself and scraped all the shingles off the house. And this house was surrounded by debris, and he instructed all of us kids to go and start picking up shingles. Well, that was the last thing I wanted to do, was go pick up trash. And so I was just mad about it, and he was somewhere close by, and I threw a shingle at him and hit him, and he looked at me like he was going to kill me. So, and he nearly did if he'd have caught me. But otherwise, I think that we all know him, and you could just feel the love from him when you were with him, no matter what time of day or night or time of year it was. It didn't have to be a holiday to come visit. The door was always open 24 hours a day, and it was just always a peaceful place to be as a child, as an adult, even now. You just get here and you feel like you're at home. I think he's a big part of that. He's a big reason that we still have that today, that this place is still here for the family. And that's what I'm grateful for. Not only just for knowing him, and him being like a second father to me my whole life. It's just that he always had a place that we could call home. And I love him. And I miss him already. And that's me. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce Tommy. Tommy's been a friend since I was, well, before I was born. Coffee drinker, dinner time guest. Really been a part of the family for a very long time. So if you don't know him, Tommy Meredith, thank you for being here.
Well, I'm not like the first two. I got help now. When you get my age, you forget stuff. So the last several days, I've been writing a few notes, and I talked to Pat about a few of them. She said, "Say what you want to." She said, "Well, you know, Tommy, you know, get about 10 minutes or so." I said, "Pat, look, I've already got an hour where I'm still working." So I had to go back and rework some stuff, and like the rest of them, Mr. Laird over there, you know, he always does the speaking for the family, and if I could sit over there, everything would be good. But standing in front of people just scares me to death. So if I look down and start reading, don't worry. And if I have a noun where a pronoun's supposed to be, or a verb or something, my little wife over here tried to tell me, Tommy, journal. She journaled and journaled. Tommy didn't journal. Now, things I wished I remembered, I don't. But I do remember a few things. And one of the things I remember is when I first met Cyrus.
Okay.
But let me back up a minute. Pat grew up in Cedar Grove. She grew on the rich side of the tracks, and we were on the other side of the tracks. But knowing Pat through my sister was her age, and because that's older than me, and going through school, we always knew Pat was probably one of the prettiest girls that ever come out of Cedar Grove. And most anybody that grew up with her can tell you that. If I start breaking, don't worry, I'll get over it. But anyway, we had some daughters. I had two, and Melissa, whatever she is. And they started taking dancing lessons at the Cedar Grove Park, about 6 years old, I think. And that's the first time I met Cyrus. And that's about 45 years ago. And I felt sorry for Pat and Cyrus when I first met them. Melissa was there taking dancing lessons. She had 2 left feet. And I had 2 angels that was perfect, you know. So soft. Just kidding, Melissa. Just kidding. Don't hit me. But the main thing that I always wanted to know was how would this old country boy from down here slip into Cedar Grove and get the prettiest girl there? I never could figure that out, and I can't till this day. But right after I met Cyrus, Cyrus was my kind because he loved horses, and I had horses. He loved farming. He had cows. I always wanted cows. And he taught me a lesson. First time I come down to work cows with him. He wanted to cut some horns off, so he gave me the D horn. And he said, just stand there and squeeze this thing, and they'll cut that horn right off. Well, I kind of seen him move over, but I didn't have sense enough to know what was fixing to happen. When I squeezed that thing, that blood shot out, and I got covered. And he thought that was the funniest thing he ever done. But anyway, so I loved this place. And right after that, he called me one day and he said, Tom, now if I talk too long, tell me when to shut up. But he told me, he said, Tommy, I want you to go to a horse sale with me. I said, okay, so I hadn't been to very many horse sales, and he took me all the way to DeBock, Texas. Bought the ugliest, roughest old horse I think come through the ring. And so we come back to Shreveport, and we got in Shreveport, and we stopped at a coffee shop, over here. And then the fellow started picking that sign because he had those glasses on that looked like Coke bottles, and he had an old split, dirty felt hat. And he said, what do you think you are, a drugstore cowboy? Well, made Cyrus mad. That's the first time I seen him mad. He went outside, walked over to the front door, jumped on the horse, and come inside. Knocked over tables, chairs, scared me to death, but I knew somebody couldn't kill us. Went back and put the horse in the trailer and come back in and said, who's a drugstore cowboy? So, that was one of my memories. And then another memory I've got of Cyrus, you know, it's like everybody said so far. He'd help anybody. There was nobody that walked. He didn't even have to know you. If you needed something, he'd help you. Well, one year I worked for Swepco, and we went on strike. And I'd been coming down here quite regularly. And so anyway, Cyrus, the other men was going out early in the morning before we go to work at Jackson B. Davis's ranch. I always wanted to be a cowboy, and that's my time to play a cowboy. And they'd go deer hunting in the morning and then come in. So Cyrus told me, said, I want you to kill me a deer. I said, well, Cyrus, I hate to tell you, I don't have a gun, a rifle to kill a deer with, so I don't go with them. The next day, he called me down here. I had a new 6mm rifle with a scope on it. And he said, now kill me a deer. He just wouldn't let anybody do without. That's page one. What do you think? Si always wanted to farm. Everybody knows that. He loved this place. I'll not say it, don't say it anyway. Cyrus done without a lot of time to save this place. He did not want this place to go under. And he wanted to farm. So he decides, back here in the back, we're going to farm. And he gets, he went and bought 5,000 bell pepper plants. Well, that was good. Cyrus rode the tractor. Me and Pat planted. Well, the bad thing was, planted the plants, no luck, no crop. We didn't get a crop out of it. So then we turned to turnip greens. Well, we planted turnip greens, and turnip greens just grew. Oh, we had them. He's hiring women to come in and pick the greens, and we had a big tank right up there by the house. Was probably, I don't know, maybe this wide, full of water, and all the greens had to be washed and tied together because he was selling to Brookshire's and the Kroger's. Well, here come the cold weather. Poor old Pat and me and Si was up there, ice on our hands, washing greens after dark because we didn't have light, trying to save greens so they could sell them. And just things like that always, got to me. How he would just help anybody. And then the next thing was he'd have Melissa and my girls go on trail rides. Oh, he loved to tell them about the trail rides. But he never went. It was always me and Pat had to follow the girls on the horses and Si. And I'm kind of losing my place here. But anyway, one of my best stories, I think, was, Pat worked at Agnew School. And Melissa was going to school there, and Pat got pregnant with this thing right here. And all the people down there give her a dryer. She didn't have a dryer. She hung all the clothes out on the line like a lot of people did. And they got her a dryer. Well, Cyrus fussed from the first day it come through the door about that dryer. So one morning he decided he's going to hook it up. He went in the bathroom, the hot water tank, and he drilled a hole in the ceiling, and he run a copper tubing through there, the length of the house, went over and drilled a hole in the wall, hole big as my little finger, and run the copper tube in, and he can't understand how come he can't just pull it out of the bottom. So he called me, and I told him, sorry, that won't work. Well, like I say, he was still fussing at Pat. So what he did, he said, okay, I'll fix it. He went out the door, he got an axe. He knocked a hole about this high, about this big. He said, yep, it's there. And then he reached down and he knocked another hole, and he said, there it is, and he pulled it out. We got the dryer hooked up. He pushed the dryer to cover the bottom hole, and he looked around, and Pat had a cloth calendar that was about that wide and about this long. He drove a nail in the ceiling, hung it down, and I think it stayed that way at least 10 years. But then one day, Si decided they need to have a shrimp boil down here. And he loved to invite people, anybody he's seen, he'd invite whether he knew you or not. So he decided to have a shrimp boil. So what's he do? He loads the family up one day, drives to South Louisiana, buys shrimp, heads on, brings them back up here, and gets calling people, invite them down, people's coming here work. He disappeared. Now who you think cleaned the shrimp? Poor old Pat worked herself dead. I tell you, I just don't know why she never knocked him in the head. Anyway, he also had a a friend in Texas. His name was Protus. Some of y'all might have known him, I don't know, but Protus sold Western tack to stores. So Cyrus was telling me about him. He said, I'm going to invite him over. He said, I want you to come down and meet him. So I did. Well, the first thing after we talked a while, Cyrus volunteered me to carry produce to every Western store within a 50-mile radius to try to sell tack. Well, that went on for several months. Never got a dime. Supposed to been getting paid, never got a dime. And then Produce and his wife split ways, or whatever you want to call it, and he didn't come back. But he did mail Si and me a pair of new boots. Anyway, you know, there's I don't know that I could ever do enough about for Si, all he done for me. And it sounds like I'm doing it, but Si done so much for me that I really think that was between me and him that I just like to keep that way. But he was always there if you needed him. He would give you anything, the shirt off his back, and he'd do anything. Well, one day he called and he said, well, get the head of my stuff. Little Si and Toby and Pat and Cyrus and Mark, I think Mark was in on a lot of it, they got into painting business because they needed to make some money. Well, the business got slow here, and they started getting off trying to find work. So Cyrus called me and he said, Tommy said, we're going to load up and we're going to Virginia to work. He said, there's plenty of work up there and we're loading up. Well, I was going to leave that part out, but I'm not. They left out of here in some old ragged vehicles and some old trailers, looked like a band of and he called me and I come down. And when they pulled off, I've never told a soul this, but tears was in my eyes. I didn't want to see them leave. It was like, there goes my best friend, and will they ever come back? I don't know. But thank God they come back. And one last thing, well, not one last thing, because I got a couple. One of the last things I remember Cyrus, when he got so sick, I would try to come down here on a regular basis, and we would sit at the table, which 45 years, I wished I had written down every hour I spent there drinking coffee, telling stories, lies, truths, you know all. But I didn't do that. Like I say there, I should have been doing it, but I never written it down. But anyway, Cyrus, one of the last times before he got confined to the bed, we were sitting there at the table, and he got a phone call. And I have to ad-lib part of it because I don't know what the little lady was saying on the other end. I was just listening to him because he loved to talk on that phone and talk to people. And I heard him say, well, lady, if you hadn't got any money, you can't pay on the bill. And you sure can't get blood out of a turtle. So I said, wait a minute. And I thought, what in the wrong? He said, little lady, have you ever eaten turnip greens? You know, she was up north somewhere. And undoubtedly she said no. He said, gonna have my wife go out there and pull some. Said, I got 3 acres out here. I'm gonna have her pull turnip greens, cook them and send them to you. And you're gonna love them so much, we're gonna keep sending them to you. And every bit of them you sell, put it on my bill. So, you know, I just, stories like that over and over, things he's done, it just, to this day, I just don't know. But anyway, probably one of the last things I'll be telling is, well, 2 days. I got some, Mr. Big Shot over here, I got to get on this. When I was a teenager, I remember my daddy sitting me down and having a talk with me. He told me, he said, son, in your life, you'll be surrounded by a lot of people, and you'll have people that you really like, you'll have people that you'll do for, you'll have people that'll use you, but you'll only have one or two really close friends. Si, my friend, Si done things with me and for me that nobody else I don't think could do. And anyway, he was a blessing in my life. And as Sam went down, before he really, I can't tell you, I lost track, but it was several years he fought this cancer. And as he was going down, Cyrus quit to set it up, and he was serious. But Si loved the Lord. And we would talk about it. And when in September, I had a massive heart attack. And they told my wife, said, I don't believe he's going to make it. Well, I did. The Lord took care of me. And Si, as sick as he was still wanting to come up there and do things for me. He couldn't, but he wanted to. And he was such a blessing in my life. And the Bible tells us we will know each other in heaven. Now, there's two things that I believe. One, Cyrus is seeing your little brother right now. And I'll see Si one day. And I believe that with all my heart. And another thing, you gotta have an ending to a story. I left it out because I just decided I needed one. There has never, that I know of, been many women like Pat Morrison. She held this family together when it looked like they couldn't be. She loved that man more than anything. All these years, nothing he could do, even in bad times, anything. She always stood by him. She always had a reason for why he was doing things. And I just want, now Pat's not here, but I just want Pat to know, she got a lot of friends here today. And Pat is one that will not ask for anything. But people need to check on her, and if she needs something, I've told her, my wife and I'll be there in a heartbeat. We'll do anything. And if the boys have to work for a living, and Melissa has to work, so if Pat needs it, we don't work. We can come and handle anything she needs. And I just want to say that I really love Si, and I love Pat. And it's going to be hard to go on because of all the time that I did spend down here. I spent a lot of it, I can't tell you. But anyway, I'm going to cut off about this much, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Laird Evans. Now, Mr. Laird Evans is a renowned author. He's writing a book. Now, I noticed over there he's taking notes on what I'm saying. So what I want to do, I want to pass this up and down, make sure everybody sees it. I want you to put your name, your address, and your phone number. And if any of my material shows up in that book, I may need y'all as a witness in court.
Well, after all of that, I don't know which end to start at. But the thing with Cyrus, you can start in the middle and go any direction. We're here today to give a final goodbye, formal goodbye to Cyrus. He was a good husband, good father, family man, uncle, grandpa, and a good friend to a lot of us here. A real good friend, and Tommy certainly dwelt on that quite well, how much we love Cyrus. He's my best friend. He was a good brother. He worried about people and took care of people. And if there was anybody needed help, the first person to show up would be Cyrus. Now, I'm like Tommy. I don't know if it's age or whatever's got to me, but I have to make myself notes nowadays, but I'll go blank, forget where I am, the usual. And I'm just going to say that it wasn't, Cyrus is the one that introduced me into the job that I had all my life, and that was head of the Teamsters Union. I got my start defending Cyrus on the job. Cyrus had a unique attitude towards things. He told me one day, he said, I told him, I said, Cyrus, I think I'm going to get fired. He said, don't worry about it. The worst thing they can do is fire you, send you home. They're not going to go burn your house down. No, you know, you're right. But when I walked out of that door fired, I just knew they were in there calling Cyrus and Roebuck, tell them I'm no longer employed. Montgomery Ward, tell them I'm no longer employed. You've got to be fired to really experience that. But the problem that I have with memory and running the Teamsters Union, and the reason I have to have notes, is that I attended a lot of meetings. And when we would get through with a meeting, they'd say, now forget everything you heard. Well, it's working. One of the stories I won't tell about Cyrus. He was a unique person. If you didn't ever meet Cyrus, it was your misfortune. And like Mark said, you could screw up and go over to Cyrus and he'd make you feel so good about it. You just didn't feel like it was a problem anymore. I was coming along the road one day and I saw a sign that said, we buy junk cars. We pay cash and we haul them off. So I thought, well, I'll just bring this up to Cyrus. And we got to talking, and he's told me this many times. He said, son, you know, Daddy always said, son, you see things different than anybody I've ever known. Well, that's true. But a lot of what Cyrus did, if you could, may have to be a family member, but if you searched, you could find a little bit of logic that you could maybe cling to. And I told him, I said, Cyrus, that man up the road got signs out saying he's buying old cars, picking them up, he'll haul them off for you, and he'll pay you. And he looked at it and said, son, ain't nothing wrong with these cars, they just need a new motor. You're right, they just need a new motor. I've got a daughter over in Sweden that got her PhD recently in prostate cancer research. Cyrus would believe anything she told him before he'd believe anything a doctor told him. So I'd have to hook him up on the phone every now and then and let her tell him. So the doctor, he figured would be lying to him. But to show you how this family sticks together, how far back, I used to always hear Aunt Bebe talk about this family would come together when there's a need. And I'll go farther and say when there was a need, Cyrus was the first one there. It was just, Tommy can vouch for that, he's just the first one there. But my daughter wrote, and this is dissertation, I guess, dissertation, whatever they write to get a PhD. Now this is a kid that we used to have to, I'd have to go down to school and meet the teacher in the parking lot in junior high and just say, can you just pass her so she can stay with her kid? She write a book preclinical imaging of prostate cancer using radio-labeled antibiotics. Who's ever heard of it? Who'd have thought? But all the way over in Sweden, she don't forget the family. There's an article in here that thanks all the people who helped her. And it says something here in the back. It says, on a closing note, it is sometimes hard to see the enormity of the work we do in cancer research until it affects us. And during the writing of this dissertation, cancer has invaded my life. So finally, I would like to honor my dear Aunt Billy, and she wrote Billy Beebe Arthur, who passed away from lung cancer on February 27, 2003. She goes on to say, I would also like to honor my Uncle Cyrus Morrison, who is fighting his own battle against prostate cancer. He's a true fighter who is not going to go down without a damn good fight, and I want him to know he is not suffering in vain. And they asked her when we was over there, why do you term it like that? What do you say without a damn good fight? You know, these people, professors, just see things different than the Laird family. And they asked her, why did you use those words? And she said, because that's what he'd have said. Like, they should have known that. But they didn't. There was a story I want to tell. In closing, this getting close to the end. I don't have, my notes are double line, skip a line. They're not like common. And the name of it, the story that Barbara Jean sent me at one time, and I just hung on to it, it's called Hands. And it's a story about old grandpa sitting out on his swing, and he was just sitting there staring at his hands. Everything was quiet, and he'd been out there a long time. The grandson saw him, was wondering why he was just sitting there looking down, staring at his hands, so he went out there. He said, Papa, what's wrong? He said, oh, nothing's wrong with it. Thanks for asking. He said, well, I've just seen you sitting staring at your hands, and I just wonder if anything wrong. He said, son, have you ever looked at your hands? He said, these are the hands that I reached out and got life with. I lived with these hands. These are the hands that embraced life with me. They tied my shoes, they pulled on my boots. They helped dress me in the morning, undress me in the evening. These hands trembled when I held my newborn children. These are the hands I used to hug my wife and hug my family. They combed my hair, they washed my face. I even covered my face. These hands trembled when I buried my mom and daddy. And nowadays, when most things are not working too well, these hands help lay me down and help me up. But most important, these are the hands that God will reach down and take, and one day lead me home. And these hands are the hands that I'll one day reach up and touch the face of Christ. And that reminded me so much of Cyrus. He and I used to sit and talk all the time. Here at the last, he was suffering. If the family grieves at all, it's because he's not suffering. He's not suffering anymore. If they grieve, it's because they miss him. It's not because of regret. They did everything for him. Everything. He loved his wife. He loved his family. I'm going to just tell you one more. Something now that I'm serious and getting teared up. I need to get off of that. Because my wife told me don't tie everybody up so we don't eat. One day, I come down here and I was sitting under the porch with Cyrus. And we'd always sit out there and talk and laugh. And Tommy'd come in there. We would laugh. We would lose our breath. Sometimes Pat would sit out there with us till she could get all she could stand. Then she would go back in. And Cyrus looked over at me and said, "Son, you want a cup of coffee?" No, what he said, the quote, said, "I'm going to get a cup of coffee. Would you want a cup of coffee?" I said, "Yeah, if you're getting a cup of coffee, I want a cup of coffee." So we're sitting there, and Cyrus had a stick. About this long. And it was shaped rather strange. And due to how it was shaped, and due to it being kind of strange, he affectionately called it Mr. Peter. Where Mr. Peter? So he was sitting there, and after we had established that we wanted coffee, he got Mr. Peter and was beating on the door. And it was just like a stick in a barrel. It just bam, 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 tap, bam, bam, bam. After a while, the door swung open, and Pat said, "What do you want, Cyrus?" And he said, "Darling, Laird would like a cup of coffee." And I think I would like one too. She slammed the door and went back in, and you know, there was a pause of silence. And, you know, it just happened so fast, I'm just sitting there. And he's sitting there leaning over and staring right in my face, and he said, "Son," he said, "there's a lot of people that thinks I'm just a poor old man who sits down here and don't have nothing. But the truth is, I live like a king." And that's the way I remember Cyrus. Thank all of y'all for giving me a chance to talk. It's kind of hard to come in after these guys. But we're all going to miss Cyrus. We shouldn't have any regrets. He's at a better place for him. He's not suffering. It hurt him for us to think he was suffering. And we would come down and sit and talk with him, and it got to the point his biggest desire was to be able to get up and go to the table. Eva, Carolyn, and the boys come down to visit, and he was telling me that all I want to be able to do is get up and go sit with them at the table. He did that. So I'm going to end, because I was always told, never stand between the Laird family and the Blues. Thank you very much.
Floor's open. Thank you guys. Really good memories, really good stories. Some of them I haven't heard, Tommy especially. I'd like to open the floor. If anybody is compelled or would like to share stories, you're more than welcome. It's a big family here.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? I'm Jared Shirley. I'm Melissa's younger son, and I'm Cyrus' grandson. It's kind of hard for me, so I'm just letting y'all know. I just came back home recently, and Cyrus had passed a week before I came home, but when I heard the news, I teared up, but it was like I knew he was free, you know, and that he was free from suffering. And when I was gone, I learned that sometimes your body can be a prison that you live in, and the world is a suffering world that we live in. And all the small things that families bicker about, I look over all that, you know. And it just means so much for everybody to come together, and I really appreciate y'all being here. It really means a lot. Y'all are so beautiful. And I love seeing everybody come together for this man. When I was younger, you know, my generation, we wear a hat like this. And Papa used to always tell me, son, you're walking forward. Tom used to help out in that too.